Captain Jai-Ho Park stood at the bridge of his salvage ship, the Star Searcher, watching the endless field of broken ships stretch out before him. The ship's lights cut through the darkness of space, showing pieces of metal and broken spacecraft floating everywhere. This was what remained after the great battle of the Cygnus border 3 months ago. "Captain, I'm picking up something interesting," said Tadwan, looking up from his scanner. His eyes showed excitement behind his safety glasses. "It's about 2 kilometers to our right, hidden behind that destroyed battleship." Jai-Ho walked over to look at the scanner. After 10 years of salvage work, he had learned to trust Tadwan's instincts. The scanner showed a small object giving off a weak power signal. "Daima, can you turn the ship toward those coordinates?" Jai-Ho asked the ship's eye. "Already changing course, Captain," the AI responded in her calm voice. "But I should warn you that the debris field is very dense in that area. It will be dangerous to navigate." Jai-Ho smiled. This was exactly the kind of challenge he lived for. "Show me the safest path through the debris, Dame." The AI displayed a glowing blue line on the main screen, marking their best route. Jai-Ho took manual control of the ship, his hand steady on the controls. The Star Searcher moved slowly through the field of wreckage, its hull sometimes just inches away from sharp pieces of metal. "Careful, Captain," Tadwan said, gripping his chair as a piece of debris scraped against their shields. "Our repair budget is already stretched thin this month." "When has that ever stopped me?" Jai-Ho replied, carefully guiding the ship around a spinning piece of engine core. As they got closer to their target, the ship's lights revealed more details about the wreckage around them. Most of it came from regular military ships, but some pieces looked different. The metal was smoother, more elegant, with traces of gold and silver designs still visible on the broken hull pieces. "This wasn't a military ship," Jai-Ho said, pointing at a particularly ornate piece floating past their window. "Look at those designs. This was something special." The Star Searcher's lights finally found their target. Floating in the darkness was a sleek, oval-shaped pod about the size of a small car. Unlike the debris around it, the pod was almost perfectly intact. Its surface was white with gold trim, and small lights still blinked on its control panel. "It's a stasis pod," Damai announced after scanning it. "And it's still working. There's someone inside." Jai-Ho's heart beat faster. Finding working technology was one thing, but finding someone alive out here, that was impossible. No one could have survived 3 months in this debris field. "Life signs are stable," Damai continued. "The pod's power supply is at 12% and falling. If we don't get them out soon." Tadwan didn't finish his sentence. They all knew what would happen when the power ran out. Jai-Ho made his decision quickly. "Tadwan, prep the cargo bay for recovery. Damai, calculate the safest way to bring that pod aboard." As his crew rushed to follow his orders, Jai-Ho couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just another salvage mission. The ornate designs on the pod, its advanced technology, its miraculous survival, everything about this situation felt important. "Beginning recovery sequence," Damai announced. The ship's mechanical arms extended slowly toward the pod, carefully avoiding the debris around it. Just as they were about to grab the pod, their radar system started beeping urgently. "Captain," Tadwan shouted. 3 ships just appeared at the edge of the debris field. "They're headed straight for us." Jai-Ho looked at his radar screen. The ships were moving fast, too fast for regular salvage vessels. They were military ships, and they were coming right for the pod. "Damai, speed up the recovery. Tadwan, power up our engines. Something tells me we're going to need a quick exit." As the mechanical arms finally locked onto the mysterious pod, Jai-Ho couldn't help wondering what he was getting himself and his crew into. But there was no turning back now. Someone's life depended on them. And Jai-Ho Park had never left anyone behind in space. The Star Searcher's cargo bay was filled with bright lights as the medical team worked around the stasis pod. Jai-Ho watched from nearby as his ship's doctor, Mireille, carefully checked the pod's control panel. The pod systems are very advanced, Mayray said, her fingers moving across the glowing screen. I've never seen anything like it. Even the writing is strange. Jaiho looked at the strange symbols on the pod. They weren't like any language he had seen in his years of salvage work. Can you open it safely? Mayray nodded. Yes, but we need to do it slowly. The person inside has been in stasis for a long time. The military ships were still following them, but the Star Searcher had managed to hide in a dense part of the debris field. Damai was keeping the ship's power low to avoid detection. We don't have much time, Jaiho reminded them. Those ships will find us eventually. Mayray pressed several buttons on the pod. With a soft hiss, the white cover slowly lifted. Cold mist poured out, and everyone stepped back. As the mist cleared, they saw a young woman lying inside. She wore a simple white suit with small gold designs. Her black hair was arranged carefully, and she looked peaceful, as if she were just sleeping. Her vital signs are stable, Mayray said, checking her medical scanner. But there's something odd about her neural patterns. They're more complex than anything I've ever seen. Suddenly, the woman's eyes opened. They were a striking dark brown, and they moved quickly around the room, taking in everything. She tried to sit up, but Mayray gently held her shoulder. Please stay still, Mayray said softly. You've been in stasis for a long time. Your body needs time to adjust. The woman looked at Mayray, then at Jaiho. When she spoke, her voice was clear but confused. Where am I? Who are you? I'm Captain Jaiho Park. You're on my salvage ship, the Star Searcher. We found your pod in the debris field. Jaiho stepped closer. Can you tell us your name? The woman's face showed confusion. My name? I think it's Haeyun. She touched her head gently. I can't remember much else. Why can't I remember? Temporary memory loss is normal after long-term stasis, Mayray explained. Your memories should return gradually. Just then, the ship's alarm started blaring. Captain, Dami's voice came through the speakers. The military ships have found us. They're approaching fast. Haeyun's body tensed at the sound of the alarm. Her eyes became focused, and for a moment, she looked like a different person. Those ships, she said, her voice stronger now. They're hunting me. I don't remember why, but I know they want to capture me. Jaiho made a quick decision. Mayray, help Haeyun to the medical bay. Damai, prepare for emergency maneuvers. He turned to Haeyun. We'll protect you. I promise. As Mayray helped Haeyun stand, Jaiho noticed something strange. Despite just waking from stasis, Haeyun moved with unusual grace. Her eyes constantly scanned the room, like someone trained to notice every detail. She didn't act like a regular passenger. Captain, Haeyun called as they reached the door. There's one thing I remember. If they catch us, they won't just take me. They'll destroy this ship and everyone on it. Are you sure you want to risk your crew for me? Jaiho looked at her steady gaze. Despite her memory loss, there was something royal about the way she held herself. My crew and I don't abandon people in need. That's not who we are. Haeyun nodded slowly. Thank you, Captain Park. I hope your kindness doesn't get you killed. As they left for the medical bay, the Star Searcher's engines roared to life. Jaiho rushed to the bridge, knowing they were about to face a dangerous chase. But something told him that saving Haeyun was more important than he could imagine. He just hoped they would all live long enough to find out why. The Star Searcher raced through the debris field, with 3 military ships close behind. Jaiho's hands moved quickly over the controls as he guided his ship between broken pieces of spacecraft and twisted metal. They're charging weapons, Ta-1 reported from his station. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped his console tightly. A blast of energy shot past the ship, turning a piece of debris into dust. Jaiho turned the ship sharply to avoid another shot. The Star Searcher shook from the near miss. Our shields won't survive a direct hit, Damai warned. The eyes calculations appeared on the main screen. showing their decreasing chances of escape. Footsteps sounded on the bridge. Ji-ho turned to see Hye-yun walking in, supported by Mi-rae. Despite her weakness, Hye-yun's eyes were sharp and focused on the tactical display. "You shouldn't be here," Ji-ho said, turning the ship to avoid another shot. "You need rest." "I can help," Hye-yun said. She moved to stand behind Ji-ho, studying the debris field ahead. "Take the ship through that cluster of wreckage to the right." Ji-ho hesitated. The cluster she pointed to was extremely dense. One wrong move would tear their ship apart. "Trust me," Hye-yun said. Her voice held a natural command that made everyone on the bridge stop and listen. "Those military ships are Mark 7 destroyers. They're fast, but not very agile. They can't follow us through tight spaces without damaging themselves." "How do you know that?" Ta-won asked, surprised. I'm not sure," Hye-yun admitted. "The knowledge is just there, like muscle memory." Another blast rocked the ship. They were running out of time. Ji-ho made his decision and turned the Star Searcher toward the debris cluster. "Dae-mei, give me full power to the forward shields," he ordered. "Everyone hold on tight." The Star Searcher dove into the mass of broken ships. Ji-ho's hands flew over the controls, guiding them through gaps barely wider than their ship. Behind them, the military vessels slowed down, unable to follow at high speed. "Two of them are trying to go around the cluster," Ta-won reported. "The third one is still following us, but they're falling behind." Hye-yun leaned forward, pointing at something on the screen. "There's an old cargo ship ahead. Its reactor core is still intact. One shot would cause an explosion big enough to seal this path behind us." "Dae-mei, scan that wreck," Ji-ho ordered. The AI confirmed Hye-yun's observation. "Weapons are charged," Ta-won said. "But if we miss, we'll only have one more shot before they catch us." Ji-ho looked at Hye-yun. "How good is your aim?" She stepped forward, her movements becoming more confident. "Let me take the weapons control." Ta-won moved aside, and Hye-yun sat at his station. Her fingers moved across the controls as if she had used them all her life. She waited, watching the pursuing ship get closer. "Now," she said quietly, and pressed the trigger. The Star Searcher's energy blast hit the old cargo ship perfectly. The reactor core exploded, creating a massive wave of debris. The pursuing military ship had to turn away to avoid being destroyed. "Path sealed," Dae-mei announced. "The other two ships will take approximately 17 minutes to reach us by going around the debris field." "That's enough time," Hye-yun said, standing up. But as she rose, her legs gave out. Ji-ho caught her before she fell. "You've done enough," he said gently. "Mi-rae, please take her back to medical." As Mi-rae led Hye-yun away, Ji-ho exchanged looks with Ta-won. They were both thinking the same thing. Their mysterious passenger was much more than she appeared to be. "Captain," Dae-mei interrupted their thoughts. "I've analyzed Hye-yun's combat tactics and weapons use. They match the highest level of military training, similar to what Royal Guards receive." Ji-ho watched Hye-yun leave the bridge, remembering how naturally she had commanded everyone's attention. "I don't think she was just protected by Royal Guards," he said quietly. "I think she was one of the people they were protecting." 3 days after their escape, Ji-ho found Hye-yun in the ship's observation room. She stood by the large window, watching the stars. The Star Searcher had hidden in a quiet part of space, far from regular shipping lanes. "The dreams are becoming clearer," Hye-yun said without turning around. "They're not dreams at all. They're memories." Ji-ho walked to stand beside her. In the past few days, Hye-yun had grown stronger. She moved with more confidence, and her eyes held a deep wisdom that hadn't been there before. "Tell me," he said simply. Hye-yun touched the cold glass of the window. "I remember a great palace made of white stone and gold. There were thousands of people, all looking to me for guidance." She paused, her reflection showing pain in her eyes. "I was their queen. Even though Jai-Ho had suspected something like this, hearing her say it still shocked him. Queen of what? The Stellar Dominion. Hei-Yun's voice grew stronger as more memories returned. We ruled over 300 star systems. Our people lived in peace for generations. Her hand formed a fist. Until Yoon-suk betrayed us. The name made Hei-Yun's face darken with anger. He was my chief advisor. I trusted him. But he wanted more power. She turned to face Jai-Ho. He planned the coup for years. He turned my own guards against me, spread lies about my rule, and waited for the perfect moment to strike. What happened? Jai-Ho asked softly. There was a celebration, marking my 10th year as queen. Yoon-suk chose that day to attack. Hei-Yun's voice shook slightly. Many loyal people died protecting me. My personal guard, Captain Eunji, helped me reach the emergency stasis pod. She said she would wake me when it was safe. Hei-Yun's eyes filled with tears. She must have died before she could. Jai-Ho wanted to comfort her, but didn't know how. What could he say to a queen who had lost everything? The ship's intercom came to life. Captain, Dame's voice was urgent. You need to see the news broadcast I just intercepted. A holoscreen appeared in front of them. It showed a man in rich clothes standing on a balcony of a magnificent palace. His face was handsome but cruel. Guards in black armor stood behind him. That's him, Hei-Yun whispered. That's Yoon-suk. The broadcast showed Yoon-suk speaking to a huge crowd. Today marks 3 years since I saved our dominion from a queen who cared more about peace than power, he declared. Under my rule, we have become stronger than ever. Our armies grow, our borders expand, and soon we will. Hei-Yun waved her hand, and the broadcast disappeared. She stood very straight now, looking every bit the queen she was. 3 years, she said quietly. I've been asleep for 3 years while my people suffered under his rule. Jai-Ho saw the change in her. The confused woman they had rescued was gone. In her place stood a ruler who knew exactly who she was and what she had to do. My ship and crew are still at your service, Jai-Ho said, if you'll have us. Hei-Yun looked at him with grateful eyes. Why? You know who I am now. You know how dangerous it is to help me. Because I've seen how Yoon-suk rules. The outer systems are filled with refugees trying to escape his power. Jai-Ho's voice was firm. And because I believe in you. I've watched you these past few days. You care about people. You think before you act. That's the kind of ruler the Dominion needs. Hei-Yun was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Thank you, Captain Park. But are you sure your crew will agree? This isn't their fight. Just then, Taiwan's voice came through the intercom. Permission to interrupt, Captain. The crew and I couldn't help overhearing. He paused. We're all with you, Your Majesty. Just tell us what you need. For the first time since they'd rescued her, Hei-Yun smiled. It was a smile that carried hope, determination, and just a hint of the steel that had made her a queen. Very well, she said. Let's take back my throne. Jai-Ho sat alone in his quarters, staring at the message on his screen. The reward for information about Hei-Yun was enough to buy 10 new ships like the Star Searcher. All he had to do was send one simple message to Yoon-suk's forces. The door chimed softly. Enter, he said, quickly closing the message. Taiwan walked in, carrying 2 cups of hot tea. He handed one to Jai-Ho and sat down. You saw the reward notice. Yes. Jai-Ho took a sip of tea. It's more money than we've made in the last 5 years combined. True, Taiwan said. But you and I both know you won't do it. Before Jai-Ho could respond, Delma's voice came through the speakers. Captain, I'm receiving a distress signal from a civilian transport ship. They're being stopped by Dominion patrol ships. Jai-Ho and Taiwan hurried to the bridge. Hei-Yun was already there, watching the main screen. The screen showed a small transport ship surrounded by 3 military vessels. They're refugee ships, Hei-Yun said quietly. I recognize the design. They're trying to escape from the inner systems. Her hands gripped the back of a chair tightly. This is what Yoon Suk does to anyone who tries to leave. They watched as the military ships forced the transport to stop. Soldiers in black armor boarded the refugee ship. "Can we help them?" Jae-ho asked. Hae-yeon shook her head sadly. "Not without revealing ourselves. Those patrol ships would call for backup immediately." She closed her eyes. This is happening everywhere in the Dominion now. Yoon Suk rules through fear. Jae-ho made his decision then. He walked to the communications station and pulled up the reward notice. With Hae-yeon watching, he deleted it. "You could have had that money," she said softly. "You could have had a whole fleet of ships." "Some things are worth more than money," Jae-ho replied. He turned to face her. "Your people need you. The real you, not whatever lies Yoon Suk has told them." Hae-yeon stepped closer to him. "And what about your people? Your crew? I can't ask them to risk their lives for my throne." "You didn't ask. We chose." Jae-ho looked around the bridge at his crew. They all nodded in agreement. "We've seen enough to know what's right." "Then we need a plan," Hae-yeon said. She walked to the tactical display. Yoon Suk's power comes from controlling information. Most people don't know the truth about what happened 3 years ago. "The salvage community might help," Ta-1 suggested. "We see things the Dominion tries to hide. Many of us help refugees when we can. And I have an idea about getting into the capital," Jae-ho added. He pulled up a map of the debris field where they had found Hae-yeon. "We salvage crews know paths through space that military ships can't follow, paths that could get us past their defenses." As they talked, Jae-ho noticed something different about Hae-yeon. When she spoke about helping her people, her eyes lit up with passion. She wasn't just a queen seeking her throne. She was a leader who truly cared about making things better. "It won't be easy," Hae-yeon warned them. "Yoon Suk is powerful and cruel. He won't hesitate to destroy anyone who helps me." "Nothing worth doing is ever easy," Jae-ho said. He looked at his crew. "But we've handled impossible situations before. It's kind of our specialty." Hae-yeon smiled at him, and Jae-ho felt his heart beat faster. He knew then that he had made the right choice. Money could buy ships and equipment, but it couldn't buy the feeling of doing what was right. It couldn't buy the trust he saw in Hae-yeon's eyes. "Well then," Hae-yeon said, standing tall and proud, "let's make a plan to save my people." The Star Searcher docked at Haven Station, a remote outpost where salvage crews often gathered. Jae-ho had called in every favor he had to arrange this secret meeting. The station's main hall was filled with captains from 30 different salvage ships. "Many of us have seen what Yoon Suk's rule has done to the outer systems," Jae-ho told the gathered captains. "Today, I want to show you the truth about what happened 3 years ago." Hae-yeon stepped forward. She wore simple clothes, but she carried herself with natural grace. The room grew quiet as she began to speak. "I am your queen," she said clearly. 3 years ago, Yoon Suk tried to kill me. Now I have returned to save our people." At first, there was silence. Then an older captain named Sung Min stood up. "My ship helped 20 refugee families escape last month. Yoon Suk's soldiers were hunting them like animals." He bowed to Hae-yeon. "My ship and crew are yours, Your Majesty." One by one, other captains stood and pledged their support. Each had a story about Yoon Suk's cruelty. Each wanted to help make things right. Dane's voice came through Jae-ho's personal communicator. "Captain, I've finished the analysis you requested. The station's computer systems are now under our control." This was To-won's idea. While everyone was focused on the meeting, Damai had quietly taken control of Haven Station's communications. They could now send messages throughout the Dominion without Yoon Suk's forces detecting them. Hae-yeon spoke again. "We don't just need ships. We need information. We need to show people the truth about Yoon Suk's rule. The salvage crews can help with that," Ta-1 said. "We go everywhere, see everything. We can spread the word quietly, ship by ship, station by station." Myray stepped forward with a data tablet. I've been studying the medical records from Heiyun's stasis pod. They prove she is the real queen. We can share these records as proof. The meeting continued for hours. Each captain offered what they could. Some had weapons. Others knew secret routes through dangerous space. Many had connections with people who hated Yoon Suk's rule. Later that night, Jae-ho found He-Yun standing in the station's observation deck, looking out at the docked ships. "I never expected so many would help," she said softly. "People remember what life was like when you were queen," Jae-ho replied. "They want that peace again." He-Yun turned to face him. "What about you? What do you want?" Jae-ho looked into her eyes. "I want to help you make things right." He paused. "And I want to be there to see it happen." He-Yun stepped closer to him. "Even though I'm a queen, even though this might end with me returning to my palace." "You're not just a queen to me," Jae-ho said quietly. "You're someone who cares about doing what's right. That matters more than any title." Before He-Yun could respond, Ta-Won's voice came through the communicator. "Captain, Your Majesty, you need to see this. Damai has found something in the station's deep storage banks." They hurried to the control room. Damai had discovered old security recordings from the palace, showing Yoon Suk's betrayal. The recordings proved he had planned the coup for years. "These will help convince people," He-Yun said, watching the recordings. "But Yoon Suk will fight harder when he knows I'm alive. He'll do anything to keep his power." "Then we'll fight harder," Jae-ho said firmly. "We have ships, crews, and the truth on our side. Sometimes that's all you need to start a revolution." The capital planet of the Stellar Dominion shone like a jewel in space. 50 salvage ships approached it slowly, led by the Star Searcher. Each ship dragged pieces of broken spacecraft behind it, creating what looked like a massive field of debris. "Yoon Suk's ships are responding exactly as we predicted," Ta-Won reported from his station. "They're moving to intercept the debris field." Jae-ho nodded. This was their plan. While the military focused on the apparent threat of falling debris, smaller ships would slip through the defense grid carrying their strike teams. "All ships report ready," Damai announced. The AI had coordinated their entire fleet, making their scattered salvage ships work together like a real military force. He-Yun stood on the bridge in her royal armor, which they had recovered from a loyal supporter. The white and gold suit made her look powerful and regal. "Remember," she said to the crew, "our goal is to reach the palace broadcasting center. Once we show the people the truth about Yoon Suk, many of his supporters will turn against him." Jae-ho checked the tactical display one last time. "Begin Operation Daybreak," he ordered. The salvage ships released their debris. Hundreds of broken ship pieces tumbled toward the capital, forcing Yoon Suk's defense fleet to spread out to stop them. In the confusion, 20 small ships broke away from the fleet, racing toward the surface. "They've spotted the small ships," Ta-Won warned. "Defense platforms are powering up." "Now, Damai," Jae-ho commanded. The AI launched their secret weapon, a virus that infected the defense platforms. Mei had found it in He-Yun's stasis pod, a last gift from the royal guards who had saved their queen. "Defense platforms are shutting down," Damai reported. "We have 17 minutes before their systems restart." The small ships shot through the gap in the defenses. Jae-ho piloted the Star Searcher expertly, following a path only an experienced salvage pilot could navigate. Behind them, the rest of the fleet engaged Yoon Suk's ships, keeping them busy. They landed near the palace in a private shipping dock. Security forces rushed to stop them, but He-Yun's supporters among the dock workers had left a path clear. "Stay close to me," Jae-ho told He-Yun as they ran through the corridors. But she was already moving ahead, her combat training showing in every step. They reached the broadcasting center's entrance. Guards in black armor blocked their way. He-Yun stepped forward. "I am your queen," she declared in a strong voice. "Stand aside or stand against me. Choose carefully." The guards looked at each other. Then their leader removed his helmet, revealing an older man with kind eyes. "Welcome home, Your Majesty," he said, kneeling. "We've waited 3 years for your return." More guards removed their helmets and knelt. They had been loyal all along, waiting for their true queen to return. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the palace. "Yoon-suk is speaking to the people," Da-mai reported through their communicators. "He's telling them rebels are attacking the palace." "Then let's show them who the real rebel is," Hae-yun said. She turned to Jai-ho. "Are you ready?" Jai-ho took her hand. "I'm always ready when I'm with you." They burst into the broadcasting center together. Technicians stared in shock as Hae-yun walked to the main platform. With trembling hands, they activated the system that would broadcast her image across every world in the Dominion. Hae-yun stood straight and proud, every inch a queen. "People of the Stellar Dominion," she began, "today you will learn the truth about what happened 3 years ago. And together, we will take back our future." 1 month after Hae-yun's broadcast, the great hall of the palace was filled with people. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, making the white marble floors shine. Citizens from all parts of the Dominion had come to witness the official restoration of their queen. Jai-ho stood near the front of the crowd, watching as Hae-yun addressed her people. She wore the traditional white and gold robes of the monarchy, but she had made one important change. Instead of sitting on the elevated throne, she stood on the same level as her citizens. "Yoon-suk's reign is over," Hae-yun declared. Her voice carried clearly through the hall. "He and his closest supporters have been arrested and will face justice for their crimes." The crowd cheered. Everyone had seen the proof of Yoon-suk's betrayal in Hae-yun's broadcast. His own guards had turned against him, and loyal citizens had stormed his private quarters. The man who had ruled through fear had fallen in less than a day. "But we will not build our future on revenge," Hae-yun continued. "Instead, we will create something new, something better." She gestured to a group of people standing nearby. "I have chosen a council of advisors from all parts of our society. They will help ensure that no single person can ever seize power again." Jai-ho smiled as he recognized some faces in the council. There was Sung Min, the salvage captain who had first pledged his support. Myre stood there too, chosen to represent the medical community. Even Da-mai had been given a position, speaking for the rights of artificial intelligences. "Our first task will be to help those hurt by Yoon-suk's rule," Hae-yun said. "The salvage fleet that helped restore me will now help bring supplies to struggling outer worlds." After the ceremony, Jai-ho found himself walking in the palace gardens. The Star Searcher was being repaired and upgraded as a reward for his service. Soon, he would return to space, helping rebuild what Yoon-suk had destroyed. Leaving without saying goodbye, Hae-yun's voice came from behind him. She had changed into simpler clothes, but she still carried herself like a queen. "I thought it would be easier," Jai-ho admitted, turning to face her. "Easier for whom?" Hae-yun stepped closer. "You helped save my life. You helped save my kingdom. Did you think I would just let you disappear into space?" "You have your duties here," Jai-ho said softly. "And I have mine out there. Why can't we have both?" Hae-yun took his hand. "The queen needs someone who will always tell her the truth, someone who sees her as more than just a ruler." The council agreed that we need a royal representative for the outer systems. Jai-ho's heart beat faster. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I need you, Jai-ho Park, not just as an advisor or a captain, but as someone who pulled me from chaos and helped me find my way home." Hae-yun smiled. "Will you stay?" Jai-ho looked into her eyes and saw not just a queen, but the woman he had grown to love. "I'll stay," he said. "But I'll still need to make trips to the outer systems. Someone has to make sure your help gets to the people who need it most." "Then we'll find a way to make it work," Hae-yun said. "After all, if a salvage captain and a lost queen can save a kingdom together, surely we can find a way to build a future together too." As they stood in the garden, watching the sun set over the capital city, Jai-ho realized that sometimes the greatest adventures don't end with finding treasure. Sometimes they end with finding something much more valuable: a purpose, a home, and a love strong enough to bridge the stars themselves.